How are you?
I'm very well.
Thank you very
Have
much.
a good night.
Wonderful.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you.
President Robinson, who runs Prosper Africa.
Oh, okay.
Pleasure.
How are you, my dear?
Welcome.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Why the merchant business become very successful in Kenya. We were trying to solve not a collection problem, but a payment problem. So when you tap your phone, when you tap your card onto a terminal by a bank in a restaurant, the money goes from your bank to the acquiring bank, not to the merchant. The merchant will get the money, T+1, T+2, so 1 day, 2 days, or sometimes 3 days later. So the merchant is not able to use the products and services. So while M-Pesa merchant payments exceed $8 billion on a monthly basis, it's not about the payment, collection. What we've digitized is the ability for me to be here and see my businesses in Kenya, and I'm able to make payments, I'm able to make salaries, I'm able to pay my taxes, all on the comfort of my home. So what we've done, we've digitized payments for small businesses, and that's why 30% of all our merchant acquisition are voluntary. We do not need a merchant team. It's because we solved a problem that small business faces is how do they make payments. They have to close their shop to go and make payments in the bank. Now, you make payments from the comfort of your phone. And we've seen this come even better with the business super app. So we've enabled a business app, which today has over 300,000 merchants using it, with an 83% engagement level on a daily basis. This is a business app with 83% engagement. That's the same engagement as almost WhatsApp. It has more engagement than a consumer because we've touched what problem are we trying to solve for businesses. And one of the most amazing things especially about Silicon Savannah, is the developer ecosystem. We opened up M-Pesa and put our API platform available for developers. Today, it's over 70,000 developers building products and services for their own customers, leveraging our ecosystem. For us, is to make sure our system is scalable, secure, and reliable. And that's what we're trying to do. And big companies, multinational companies across the globe and fintechs across Africa use it. Flutterwave, Sendwave. With the Open API platform, we are able to integrate African businesses to be able to make seamless movement of payments across the continent. Anchored by our technology, and it's great to be in Silicon Valley. Guys, we do not have the best tech, but we have great execution. Please help us with technology. Please help us with, with cloud technology, generative AI, and so much more, because we have the customers, we know how to execute, but we know how to partner with yourselves to ensure that the products and services that you want to sell to our country or we want to bring this side is available.
So the question becomes, how did we get into Kenya? Well, what we did, we decided that we wanted to reach out to the embassy, and we subsequently reached out to an individual named Matt Snyder. And we had a great conversation about wanting to get into the Kenya marketplace. And we asked him specifically, what can you do to get us into that market? And so from Matt's perspective, he doesn't drink wine, and he drinks beer. So he wasn't aware that we were looking actually to get into Kenya and the market potential there. So Matt followed up with us. It took about a week later, and Matt had gone out to the local Carrefour with his wife when he went shopping, and he got back to me and said, Anthony, you're absolutely right. There's no California wines here, and we're going to have to change that. So we started to work with the embassy, and we got eventually our wines into the largest supermarket chain in Kenya, Navis Supermarkets, and we're looking right now to expand our market presence into Quick Mart and also Carrefour, which are the other two largest supermarket chains there. And I have to tell you that the ambassador was very instrumental as well in getting us into that marketplace. So one of the first things we did was carry out, obviously, some market research. And we went out to Mombasa, And we had the hotel's ambassador taste our wines, and they loved the wines. And then we attended, we exhibited at the Kenya trade show about 2 years ago, and we offered free wine. And obviously, if you offer anything free, people are going to come. So we had a great amount of people that came there, and they tasted our wines, and we were able to collect some useful information. One of the things I have to share with you about California wines is, and I know the president in Kenya, President Ruto, doesn't drink alcohol, so you're probably not going to relate to this. But I would tell you that you should look at the expression on individuals' faces. The smile that they just have once they've tasted our wine. Clearly to us, we knew we were onto something. So around about October, the ambassador was kind enough to open up a private residence, which is a little bit more than a residence, I have to admit. And we had our wine tasting there, and we invited most of the individuals that needed to be there to purchase our wine. And as I mentioned, subsequent to that, we're now in the largest supermarket chain there, and we're looking to expand. The price points that we play in are really in the middle tier price point and luxury price point. It's very difficult for us to get into the lower price point, which is where the majority of the market share is. So one of the things we're looking to do is to have some foreign direct investment, and that's where the investment side comes into play, where we're looking to set up a facility in Kenya so that we can buy bulk California wines and then have it bottled in Kenya and shipped out to the rest of Africa.
Good. Visa cares an enormous amount about Africa and Kenya. One, because we see huge opportunity to drive our business growth, but two, also a huge opportunity to grow our corporate mission. And our corporate mission is to uplift everyone everywhere. And there's a great opportunity for both of those things throughout Africa and specifically in Kenya. And so if you look at some of the data that we focus on, we want to digitize cash as much as possible. And we estimate in Africa there's still about $1 trillion of cash to go and get. We want to bring more small businesses into the digital economy. We estimate that in sub-Saharan Africa there's about 40 million small businesses still to pull into the ecosystem. We want to drive innovation and technology, and the pool of resources and engineers in the Silicon Savannah is just phenomenal. So we're investing. Less than a year ago, Visa made a commitment to invest $1 billion in Africa over the next 5 years, and a large portion of that's going to be in Kenya. And in addition to Visa, the Visa Foundation is also committed to the space. And so earlier this year, when US Vice President Harris was in the US, the foundation committed an additional $5 million to invest in bringing more small businesses, in particular women-owned small businesses, into the space. So as I mentioned earlier, I got back from Nairobi probably about 5-6 weeks ago, and it just was a wonderful experience, a truly wonderful experience. Visa's been there for 30 years. Our new office, I guess it's not that new anymore, has been there about 12, 13 years. We serve not only the Kenyan market from our Nairobi office, but all of East Africa. It's a really important hub for us. But we've been so impressed with the Silicon Savannah that we actually opened one of Visa's global digital innovation studios in Nairobi. So we have one in San Francisco, we have one in London, we have one in Dubai, we have one in Singapore, and we have one in Nairobi. Those are the areas that we decided to...
Fantastic.
And it's probably one of the most innovative and exciting ones that we've got anywhere in the world. And just the last thing I would say, as we approach business in Kenya, we're all about doing things through partnership. So Visa showing up is nice, but Visa showing up in partnership with the players that are the real heroes in this. That's how we approach a market, be it a bank or a fintech or a merchant or an MNO, or most importantly, the government. Governments are the most important in unlocking that digital capability, and what the Kenyan government is doing is amazing. And what we want to do is offer our services to try to help those real leaders in market have the impact that they can have and that they aspire to have. So we're committed to the space for decades to come, and we're really excited.
Thank you.
The population of Kenya is equal to the population of California, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington put together, 55 million. But what I find really striking is the rapid evolution of the digital aspects of it. At Microsoft, we have 1,200 partners across Kenya, and some really stand out, and some of those that stand out are here today. One, certainly that you mentioned, is M-Pesa. And it's not just what M-Pesa is doing to just transform financial transactions, which is extraordinary, but we've partnered with the M-Pesa Foundation over the last few years and brought not just digital skilling, but financial skilling to 600,000 small and medium enterprises across the country. The education system, the president mentioned it, is just rippling across Kenya. We've trained 12,000 teachers and reached 1 million students with digital curriculum. And so you're really seeing the foundation for what I think is the long-term momentum that will continue to make Kenya, a center not just in and of itself, but for all of East Africa and all of Africa. And then the last thing I would highlight that I just think is so important is the rule of law. A low standard for taxes with low taxes, that helps. But a high bar for the rule of law, that's an imperative. And Kenya has a modern, innovative constitution. It was written in 2010. It's the only constitution in the world that actually addresses climate, calls for 10% of the country to have tree cover. The presidential election last year was actually of enormous importance, not just to Kenya, but I think to Africa and the world, both because of the election of President Ruto, but because of the example it set for the stable and peaceful transition of power. And I would just then say, one of the great things about Kenya is that it has a really strong, healthy, large legal profession, government processes and ministries that work, and that will, I think, help propel the country to do many great things. It's made it much easier for a company like Microsoft to do business, to invest, to grow, and have confidence in the decisions that are made. And I think that, too, is just something that makes it very attractive for any company in the tech sector.
Kenya is the most stable democracy in Africa. Kenya is the gateway to the East Africa market of almost 500 million consumers. Kenya is the regional logistics hub. Kenya is the leading regional financial hub. And Kenya, with its Silicon Savannah and super smart engineers, is the region's ICT hub. Kenya is a leading destination for foreign direct investment and venture capital. Kenya has a young, educated, entrepreneurial, and English-speaking workforce. And as I said, Kenya generates over 93% of its energy from renewable sources. And last but certainly not least, Kenya's largest export market is the United States, just past Uganda. So let me repeat, this is exciting. Kenya's largest export market is the United States, and we think Kenya is ready for liftoff as it diversifies its economy. So Kenya, as I said, is the gateway to East Africa. 80% of East Africa's regional trade passes through the port of Mombasa. In addition, Jomo Kenyatta is East Africa's busiest airport. In Nairobi, it's served by 40 passenger airlines and 25 cargo carriers, including FedEx and DHL. FedEx just arrived in country about a year ago. Kenya also now has some excellent infrastructure, such as the standard gauge railway, a series of new roads, and modern ports. Kenya is already the regional financial hub for East Africa. Several international banks have had presence in Nairobi for decades. The region's largest stock market is in Nairobi, and the city hosts, importantly, the necessary legal, accounting, and consultancy services to preserve and accelerate that status. Now, one of the main reasons I brought the roadshow to the Bay Area is because Kenya's vibrant technology community, known as Silicon Savannah, is very exciting, and I know His Excellency is going to talk more about it. But the Kenyan government is committed to establishing Nairobi as the premier destination for tech sector innovation and investment. Many leading companies are already in Kenya, including the names that you see on the screen behind me. But emerging and also hugely impactful Kenyan companies like Clopia Global, Semiconductor Technologies Limited, Twiga Foods, Market Force, Power Financial Wellness, Kiosk, Udu, and many electric vehicle startups are in Kenya too. Now, I have met these companies, I've visited their operations, and what I see happening has many of the critical components that will make Silicon Savannah a reality. At the nexus of finance and technology is one of the most impressive companies I've seen in my 30-year history in technology, and that's M-Pesa. Kenya's innovators invented M-Pesa in 2007, and by 2010, M-Pesa had become the largest mobile money network in the world. M-Pesa has annual revenues of over $1 billion US. There's $360 billion US that flow through the platform, and it's an open API with 60,000 developers writing apps for M-Pesa. And what M-Pesa did, it solved one of the biggest problems in mobile money. Mobile, secure, ubiquitous, low-cost payments. M-Pesa has over 50 million customers in 7 countries, is involved in 70% of Kenyans' transactions, powers over 5 million businesses, and catch this, 59% of Kenya's annual GDP flows through M-Pesa. 70% of Tanzania's GDP flows through M-Pesa. And you're going to hear from the CEO of M-Pesa in just a few moments this morning. So, let me tell you something. I know a little bit about this business because you might remember when I was at eBay, we bought PayPal. And I can assure you that M-Pesa is extraordinary. M-Pesa alone, I think, demonstrates the brilliant business minds at work in Kenya that are devising African solutions to global problems.
To actualize the intention of developing a business-friendly environment, the following commitments are now very high strategic priorities. First, for the sake of stability, we have a tax code that is simple to enforce, consistent, fair, and predictable, that lasts at least 3 years. This is one commitment that I undertook when I made contact and I had a conversation with the American Chamber of Commerce. Secondly, we are committed to align our institutional framework for data protection with a global regime of global cross-border privacy rules framework. Third, we have eliminated VAT on exported products and the tax on stock-based compensation for employees of startups, as well as domestic equity requirements for ICT companies have been removed. Again, these are a raft of commitments that I did undertake to make Kenya a destination for the kind of companies that you run. You can now operate from Kenya into the region, provide services across the region without paying any additional tax. There was a requirement before that for you to set up in our continent, you needed to partner with companies in Kenya to the extent of 30% of equity. We have removed that requirement because we realize that the ability or capability of some of the companies locally to have that kind of resources may not exist, and therefore it served as an impediment. Further, we also give our undertaking to comply with the OECD's two-pillar solution for digital services tax when it enters into force. I believe it is also necessary at this stage to underscore our commitment to the re-engineering of our country's special economic zones and export processing zones with the intention of making them the most competitive in Africa. The strategic mission is to accelerate the flow of foreign direct investment by simplifying processes and removing procedures and regulations whose only purpose is to create unnecessary barriers to investors. We have further clarifying and rationalizing land regime to make access to land in our special economic zone and export processing zones expeditious. It is also useful to bring to your attention the fact that CCI Global, an American firm operating Kenya's biggest PPO out of Tatu City, Kenya's leading privately owned special economic zone, is presently doubling its workforce to 8,000, with a plan to further increase it to 12,000. This will enable CCI to serve American corporations, including United Airlines, Spirit Airlines, JetBlue, AT&T, and Shipped, thereby giving very young Kenyans between 18 to 24 the opportunity to develop and provide the highest level of customer service skills. Thanks to CCI, its American clients, Kenya's famous hospitality has gone global, and we commit to take all necessary measures to make Kenya even more attractive for BPOs. Safaricom is developing a partnership with Apple to integrate M-Pesa and its PayPal platform to extend M-Pesa's transactional reach globally. And this has nothing to do with Ambassador Whitman being the ambassador of Kenya. Our strategic collaboration with Microsoft, Intel, IBM, Oracle, and Google are going to be pursued from a similarly pro-tech, solution-oriented, opportunity-enhancing, and transformational standpoint. We have every intent of maximizing the wonderful chances that these companies have presented to radically enhance our service delivery capabilities in skills development and training, research and development, data management, semiconductor manufacturing, cloud platforms, and cybersecurity, as well as various sectoral interventions. Our efforts to strengthen bilateral trade relations between the US and Kenya through the Strategic Trade and Investment Partnership have begun to take shape. And as you heard Ambassador Whitman say, this is a process that we are engaged in, and we intend to conclude these negotiations and sign the first ever agreement between America and a country in the African continent. Kenya, ladies and gentlemen, is your gateway to the Silicon Savannah, to the East African community, the most integrated regional market of 500 million people. It is also a gateway to the Pan-African market of 1.4 billion people. If you build in Kenya, it works for Africa, and if you set up in Kenya, your African footprint is guaranteed. Our country is not only a thriving economy of the hardest workers you can find anywhere, it is also a scenic extravaganza of spectacular geography and a thrilling theater of rare wildlife in majestic action. If you travel from the Indian Ocean coast at the southern end to the world's second largest freshwater lake on the southwestern side, you will inspect the parade of proud palm trees in the coastal lowlands and the enigmatic baobab trees that hide elephants and give way to looming giraffe feeding and leopard sheltering acacia of the Nyika, that's the plateau. The herbivorous magnet savanna grasses where lions and cheetahs stalk hungrily for prey before you enter dense tropical forests higher and further inland on the way to behold the dramatic Afro-alpine flora of freezing mountainside, where you can see the snow-capped peak of Africa's second highest mountain before surveying the breath-stopping escarpments with borders to Lake Shirun, Great Rift Valley, where I come from. You can enjoy all this and more over a course of only 800 kilometers The diversity of our landscapes and wildlife is amazing. Our people are brilliant winners of diligent go-getters. Magical Kenya is irresistible. I have learned something fantastic from Ambassador Whitman. Kenya has innumerable, marvelous attractions that we have grown up with and often take for granted. I agree with her that Kenya is beautiful and brimming with possibilities, which will be unleashed by aligning your investments with our opportunities. My work is to create the best possible environment for that to happen. And I give you my commitment that I will do my best, and I will do it quickly. Kenya is the cradle of humankind, is the home of humankind. That is where we all came from. Those of you who are in America, those of you in Asia and the rest of the world, we all came from somewhere in Kenya. And therefore, don't be surprised when you feel at home in Kenya, because it truly is home. And therefore, I want to urge you, it is said, east and west, including north and south, home is best. Come invest at home. Thank you very much. At the Africa Climate Summit held in Nairobi a few days ago, the last remaining skeptics were finally convinced by incontestable facts that Africa is the next frontier of a new industrial revolution. At close to 1.5 billion people, nearly a fifth of the world's population is African, meaning that approximately 1 in every 5 people globally is African. What is more, Africa is extraordinarily a young continent with a median age of 19. Thanks to decades of painstaking investment in human capital development, our youth are educated, skilled, and highly motivated to make their contribution to economic and cultural transformation and ready to work globally as a global workforce. Africa remains famous for its abundant endowments of natural resources of a wonderful variety, ranging from mineral resources, including critical minerals required for transition into clean and green industrialization, to the world's largest available tracts of arable, uncultivated agricultural land, as well as carbon sinks, together with green energy generation potential from solar, hydro, geothermal, and as you heard Meg say, wind power. In fact, the largest wind farm in Africa is Lake Turkana wind farm that is in Kenya. Only capital and technology in the form of ready, affordable, and adequate investment stand between Africa's potential and its destiny. Underdevelopment and industrialization, and between poverty and prosperity, a youth time bomb and a democratic dividend. This is the context from which I speak to you at America's, if not the world's, technology capital here in San Francisco. The idea that Africa stands in need of its own tech capital isn't new, or it's not even wishful thinking. For decades, thinkers have tossed around the idea of a space and culture dedicated to the development and expansion of technology companies, products, and innovations in Africa. This is not only consistent with the philosophy of the Africa we want and the Pan-African ethos of African solutions for African problems, it also envisions an Africa capable of harnessing technology to thrive by providing localized solutions in a dynamic strategic and operational environment, exploiting its unique endowments and capacities, and powering regional and continental integration and transformation to unlock our shared prosperity, not just in Africa, but globally as well. The most consequential breakthrough in technological innovation will take place in the East African savannah when global tech leadership, together with foreign direct investment, converge upon Africa's youthful human capital, natural resources, and green energy potential. I am very clear in my mind that this is the moment we are having a conversation about. I am not alone in this conviction. The first movers are already on site, and they pitched tent long time ago in Kenya, a country famous for its vibrant entrepreneurship culture and pioneering innovation ecosystem, which is now home to the regional headquarters of Google, IBM, and Oracle, among others. I want to assure you, ladies and gentlemen, on what Ambassador Whitman has presented. Kenya is all that he has said and much more. You will hear Sitoyo Lopokoit, he is right here with us, give you his presentation of M-Pesa, the mobile money innovation that has transformed payments, challenged traditional banking services, and innovatively solved transactional security issues. M-Pesa is also Kenya's confident announcement to the world that we are ready, able, and willing to play in the big tech league. I am aware that it's not enough to have opportunities, however numerous and attractive. Incentives, and I repeat, incentives matter. And investment capital responds directly to the institutional dimensions of the operating environment. I have come to the Silicon Valley to underscore the Kenya government's strategic intent to support, through infrastructure and other investment, the enhancement of Kenya's position as the epicenter of Africa's innovation and technological transformation. Due to the various factors, many countries in our part of the world still struggle with low rates of internet penetration, digital literacy, and electric power connectivity. Access to the internet, a requirement to practically a fundamental human rights status throughout the world, remains out of reach for most people on our continent, with less than 22% access in 2021 that was reported. Given Africa's unique situation with the international financial system, few countries enjoy the fiscal space required to commit significant resources to strategic investment aimed at systematically developing digital infrastructure, services, skills, and entrepreneurship. For your information, Kenya is among those few. We have provided the infrastructure and institutional framework to support high connectivity throughout the country. Our mobile penetration is the highest on the continent, close to universal. 4G and 5G coverage is 96%, with major urban centers across the country connected to 5G networks. The mobile phone remains the foremost instrument of digital transformation in Kenya, enabling people perform a broad range of tasks and enjoy a spectrum of services at their convenience. It is the engine that optimizes the restless energy of our youthful and entrepreneurial nation. And as a government, we are working on smartphones to make sure that citizens from the comfort of their homes and villages can access government services. There remains significant opportunity to do more in fostering digital access and inclusion. As a matter of fact, it is possible for us in Kenya to leapfrog over more traditional ICT simply by keeping down the cost of smartphones. The possibility motivated my announcement early in the year that the government would collaborate with the private sector to roll out the first 1 million locally assembled smartphones to sell at only $40. For technology to play its role. And just for your information, the factory is up and the first 20,000 units are out. For technology to play its role as the great equalizer, it must be supported through investment to become widely available, and working between government and the private sector is a necessity, if not an imperative. Kenya's high digital connectivity complements our people's entrepreneurship. In turn, this attracts venture capital to our economy. This is why Kenya defied a global slowing down of venture capital to record Africa's strongest growth in funds raised. According to the funding tracker, Kenya emerged second in venture capital funding, tying with Nigeria, whose population is 4 times ours, and handily beating Egypt and South Africa. The reason for Kenya's strong performance in attracting venture capital funding boils down to investor confidence, the knowledge that a startup that succeeds in Kenya is highly likely to scale the rest of Africa. As an example, M-Pesa, a homegrown, typical Kenyan solution, now operates in 7 countries, serving over 51 million customers. Venture capital flows to Kenya in large volumes. Is doing so because there is a conducive environment for innovators to test their products. Kenya's sizable youth population is ever hungry with new ideas, fresh innovations, and the fastest technology, and this makes our country a magnet for innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship. We are unequivocally Africa's startup hub. Kenya is a wholly people-driven nation, state and economy. Our ability to compete with economies with superior resource endowments comes from the spirit of resilience of our people. At the heart of our entrepreneurial culture are the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of Kenyan people. The irrepressible energy of our people drives our country's overall robustness, and particularly our dynamism in technological innovation and beyond. We do not take this for granted, and investing in people is therefore a critical strategic priority for Kenya. One of the most clean energy will define the heart and soul of Kenya's tech growth and development. As you already know, Kenya is a global leader in the generation and utilization of green energy. 93% of our national grid is green, and we are taking necessary measures to provide not only 100% green grid, but also one that provides power with abundance, stability, and affordability required to stay competitive as a manufacturing industrial destination. And just so that you know that we are very serious about this, today in Kenya, we will be signing another 300 megawatts contract with FFI that will help us generate additional power from our geothermal resources. I mean, today. It's happening in Kenya as I am here. American companies like Symbion, Delight, Synergy Limited, Sun Culture are already familiar with our position as active players in various sectors in Kenya. Our country is home to the only data center on our continent that is certified under the world's best green building rating system. Not only is the National Data Center accredited for leadership in energy and environment design, it is also certified by the Uptime Institute as a Tier 3 data center, which means that it can guarantee 99.99% availability of service. Last month, we broke ground for the only 100% green energy-powered data center connected to geothermal electric power at the most competitive cost per kilowatt hour. It is projected, as you all know, that 15% of total global energy will soon be consumed by data centers. The signal is officially out. You cannot find a better location for your green data center than in Kenya. Additionally, Kenya's rich package of geostrategic advantages ranging from diplomatic, peace and security, humanitarian business and investment, to technology and innovation is complemented by its situation as the gateway of 6 undersea fiber optic cables, which form the foundation of the country and the region's reliable data connectivity. This advantage is critical for the growth of our data center community. Kenya has now confirmed its position as a continental leader in e-mobility in terms of 2- and 3-wheel electric vehicles as well as buses. As we speak, 30 e-mobility companies, including such industry leaders as Kiri EV, Rome, Basico, Akrite, and Powerhive, all call Kenya home. At the same time, regional leaders like Amazon, which expanded into Kenya with US support, and Rivian, the US electric vehicle leader that operates safari vehicles in Kenya, will tell you that Kenya is indeed a very pleasant home. The Africa Climate Summit that we held a few days ago enabled Africa's leaders to mobilize effectively in defining a common continental position on climate action, which will shape our agenda in multilateral fora, including the United Nations General Assembly, which we are attending later this week, and the COP28 that is coming up in December. In addition to this, the summit reinforced Kenya's well-earned credentials as a leader in climate action, green transformation, and the commitment to align the global industrial decarbonization agenda with Africa's potential. Over 35,000 participants attended the summit, led by 25 African heads of state and governments and the UN Secretary General. One thing became undeniably clear: the future of green growth is African.